are now 10 films in the DCEU with the release of Zack Snyder's Justice League, and I am so excited to dive into this ranking, and I want to make sure to hear your guys' ranking down below in the comment section. Which one is your favorite? Which one's your least favorite? What's your thoughts on Zack Snyder's brand new Justice League film? And just in general, guys, make sure to hit that like and subscribe, and if you love talking geeky content, because I love talking it too all the time over here on a daily basis, so I hope to see you guys again soon. But without further ado, let's dive into this ranking right now. Coming down at my number 10 is probably an obvious choice, and that is Justice League. Now, on my latest rewatch of all these DC films, Justice League is the one that I have been putting off for quite a bit, probably for a couple of years now. And I used to look at it, like, the first time I walked out, I was like, that wasn't too bad. But then you keep sitting on it, you watch it more, and you just come away with this underwhelming feeling every single time, and then including in with all the pathetic and terrible things that you hear afterwards and all the drama behind the scenes, it just puts a bad taste in your mouth watching the movie. Plus, now watching it just in general, it doesn't feel satisfying whatsoever. It's not a Zack Snyder's film. It feels like a Frankenstein mess that completely just doesn't work for me at all, sadly, and it's literally my least favorite DCEU film for that reason. I know this is the one that's canon, but Jesus Christ, it should not be. At my number 9 is Suicide Squad, and also mess that I'm interested if we are going to get the Ayer cut. I don't know exactly, maybe, but for me, I don't know how much more could be fixed. I think we saw enough of the Suicide Squad to really much give us a flair of what we are getting from the entire film. And for me, it has redeemable qualities, especially from the performances from, of course, Margot Robbie and Will Smith as Deadshot. Both Harley Quinn and Deadshot are excellent in here. Diablo is really cool. And in general, all the characters and their dynamics and chemistry with one another is some of the best elements of it. But when it comes down to the action, it's just not great. When it comes down to the story, that's not great. And it just feels like an utter mess of, it doesn't know what it wants to be. We want to kind of be like Guardians of the Galaxy, but we also want to be in the same Snyderverse tone. Doesn't work. At my number 8 is Aquaman. Now, everything from 8 and up, I thoroughly enjoy to love. And Aquaman's one of those movies that I need to definitely spend a little bit more time under the sea with this one, because the first time I watched it, I loved it, and I still pretty much do love it. But right now, as this ranking is shifting back and forth, this is where it's kind of leaving me to. It isn't overly a little bit of too long, a little bit too bloated when it comes to that, but James Wan completely dove in and made a Lord of the Rings Under the Sea, and Jason Momoa kills the role. This really much redefined and showed me like he is our Aquaman, for better or for worse, and I love that to death. I love the action scenes in here. I think these are some of the probably the best action we've seen yet in the DCEU, and it really much feels like a live action anime, like 100%. There's some cheesy, definitely way cheesy moments in here that I do not feel like fit with the overall tone, but when it comes down to Aquaman, it's a super enjoyable time, and if you're looking for just a big smile on your face and to shove a lot of popcorn in it, that is what Aquaman is going to give you. And at my number 7 is going to be Wonder Woman, Patty Jenkins' first directed film inside the DCEU, and for me, I really adore this film until the third act. I've mentioned it multiple times that the third act I think is entertaining, but it very much goes away from what made the film so special for me. I think it really much climaxes at the no man's land scene, and I think Gal Gadot is really good in the role, but I just don't feel like she was able to stretch her acting capabilities in this one. This one very much felt more like a fish out of water story, which it is, but also as an action set piece centric, and it has a lot of that. But I think Patty Jenkins' direction is the big star of this entire movie, and thoroughly I really like Wonder Woman, but it's one of the ones that I don't really care to go back and rewatch. At my number 6 is one movie I love and I wish more people would give it a chance, and that is Birds of Prey. It very much saddens me that I don't think we'll ever get a sequel to this, but Kathy Yon's directing in here is incredible. The acting from Margot Robbie in here as Harley Quinn is exceptionally amazing. Mollett as Black Canary, excellent. Elizabeth Winstead as Huntress, excellent. And just the rest of the cast really much all works, and especially Ewan McGregor as Black Mass, who completely and utterly eats up every single scene. This movie has a great soundtrack. It looks amazing. The action is very entertaining. And for like an hour and 45 minutes, one of the most shorter DCEU films, it's one that is very easy to kind of just sit there and completely re-watch. I don't think the R rating was completely needed, but as an entertaining movie, I love Birds of Prey, and I think it is an utter blast of a time. And my number 5 is one that I know a lot of people will disagree with me on, but that is Wonder Woman 1984. I freaking love this movie to death. I've seen it around 4 or 5 times, and I cannot wait for it to come out on 4K so I can watch it all over again. I think Gal Gadot is excellent in this role. I've mentioned it. I think the first film didn't really give her that acting capability to really stretch her acting abilities, but I think Wonder Woman 1984 really does that in spades, especially Pedro Pascal, who for me is one of my favorite villains in the DCEU. Now, the thing about 84 is that I feel like this is very much a direct homage to Christopher Reeve's Superman in so many different ways, whether it's from Wonder Woman's first flying scene to even some of the romantic and villain capabilities. I think it all works and mixes very well. The clashing of themes and tones maybe don't work for everyone, but for me, I ate it all up every single second. I drove 2 hours to see this movie. I wouldn't be sitting here saying I loved it if I didn't love it, because that's a lot of dedication and anticipation, and for the fact that it worked for me made me really happy, because I just cannot get enough of this movie, and I absolutely love Gal Gadot, and I can't wait to see what Patty Jenkins says was the third Wonder Woman film. Plus, my God, can we just speak about Hans Zimmer's score? He literally said, I'm gonna go all out for this movie, and we just said, of course, do it. At my number 4 is the Ultimate Edition of Batman vs. Superman. I want to stress that. The Ultimate Edition of Batman vs. Superman, because the one that went in theaters, the original cut, not great. And if you've never seen the Ultimate Edition, I can't express enough. Go watch it. It's way better. That 30 minutes absolutely adds a lot to the entire story. And for me, Batman vs. Superman is one that has completely grown on me. The first time watching it, I was completely and utterly disappointed. But when it came down to that Ultimate Edition, I gave it a new look, I gave it a try, and I loved it. I ate up every single sequence of it. And the thing for me is I am a big fan of Zack Snyder's direction and his visual storytelling devices. I think he is really phenomenal when it comes down to all those story points and the way that he's able to really formulate these characters. I like the more mean, gritty, dark DC worlds, and I love when he touches into those. I love this version of Batman because that's the version of Batman that I absolutely love. Yes, I love the campy, and of course I love other versions of Batman too, but this dark, gritty, Dark Knight Returns type Batman, that's my shit. And that's what he grabbed and brought into the Batman v Superman world. Of course, Ben Affleck playing Batman, he solidified that he's my favorite Batman of all time. We'll see if Robert Pattinson passes that, but he also embodies Bruce Wayne in such a manner that really gets under my skin and gives me chills. I want to explore more of this world of the Snyderverse, and that's why I can't say enough, restore the Snyderverse. I want more of it. Plus, Henry Cavill in this version is just excellent as well. The action set pieces are great, and the introductions to Wonder Woman is also so freaking good. The scene between Batman vs. Superman is epic, and of course the fight between Doomsday and the Trinity of DC is excellent. I know it's a big CGI mess, but I ate it all up, and I feel like it very much fits inside the style and tone that happened throughout the entire movie, and that's why I think it works in this one and doesn't work in other movies that I've already talked about. And at my number 3, we have Shazam! I love Shazam. This movie, when I went to go see it in theaters, I felt that this movie gave me the same feeling that I had when I watched Sam Raimi's Spider-Man for the first time ever. Truthfully enough, I haven't felt that same excitement or that same childhood love that I'd felt for a character in such a long time. Shazam blew me away with its charm, with its humor, with its lore and world building, and of course just Zachary Levi. I was so excited when he was cast as Shazam because he is one of the most underrated charismatic actors in Hollywood. If you've never seen the show Chuck, if you're a nerd, that show is right up your alley. I love Zachary Levi in the role of Shazam. Shazam is one of my favorite superheroes of all time, especially in the DC world. So just seeing that character come to life and the way, the dynamics of bringing the whole entire Shazam family to life, and even having a weird eccentric villain played by, of course, Mark Strong, was just superb. Love the direction in here. It has a lot of horror vibes, of course, because of David F. Sandberg, and I cannot wait to see his direction with Shazam 2. I really hope it's just as good as the first one. But of course, at my number 2 is Zack Snyder's Justice League. Now, this could go up. But it's going to take a bit for it to take my number 1 spot. The number 1 spot hasn't been changed in quite a while, and we'll get to my number 1 in a second, but Zack Snyder's Justice League was the version that we have all been waiting for, we've been clamoring for, we've been wanting to see, and for me, I think it's one of my favorite comic book films ever made. I think it's perfect for me. It's perfect. It's everything I wanted it to be. I was utterly stunned and blown away for those 4 hours, and the pacing of it is so well done. And I say that because its pacing is great. For a 4-hour film, it only felt like 2. The way that it's really structured through its different part 1, part 2, part 3 helps you really fundamentally go through and really, I think it helps structure the film in a really unique way. And yes, it might have the same fundamental story of the complete mess that we got back in 2017, but with that big but, even though it has that same story, every single story beat, every single scene, every single sequence, every single character is fleshed out in a more vivid and explorative way that made me not just love this movie, but love every character. I wasn't really a big fan of Ezra Miller's The Flash. I really dug him in this, especially because some of the depth that they really gave to him. I loved Gal Gadot in here. We already love her as Wonder Woman, but more depth is given to her. Aquaman perfectly sets up his movie, and he's just fantastic and gets a lot more to do in here, and even adding in a little bit more to all the other characters. The grief that Ben Affleck's Batman is feeling in here over the events of Batman vs. Superman is riddled throughout this, and his determination to actually succeed in this mission. But my God, even Steppenwolf was very much enhanced, not just in the CGI, but actually in his storytelling abilities. When it comes down to the 2 main characters that I haven't spoken about yet, the ones that I feel like were the most disrespected in that last Justice League film, it is Ray Fisher's Cyborg, who is the complete soul of this movie, and honestly, like, brought me to tears. I was utterly in tears from Ray Fisher's performance, but even adding in there as well, Henry Cavill's Superman. He had some good scenes in the original one, I'll give him that, but you couldn't get over the damn CGI face, and in this one, there's no CGI face. It's completely Superman in the black suit, and he is kicking ass and putting a big smile on your face, and I loved it. I loved every single moment of this epic storytelling, the lore, the mythology, everything, and the action set pieces. Every single action set piece that you remember from the original one, imagine that times 10. On the epic scale, the Batmobile scene of him driving around in that whole entire Russian area, I mean, my jaw was just on the floor. Every person gets a moment to stand, and I loved Zack Snyder's Justice League. And I didn't even get to mention Junkie XL's score. Oh my God, it's fucking awesome. Of course, at my number 1 is Man of Steel. I have always loved Man of Steel. It's one of my favorite comic book films of all time, probably top 5 to be honest with you all. And for me, growing up, Batman was my favorite superhero, but I also really enjoyed Superman, but I never really loved him as a character until Man of Steel. Man of Steel kind of showed me that, because I was always more about the gritty, darker characters in a sense, besides Spider-Man. I just always loved Spider-Man, but I feel like in the tone of Superman, I feel like there was a darker version of that character that I really wanted to explore. Now, Man of Steel gave me that. It gave me more of a fish out of water story of a guy who's learning his powers, who is not Superman yet. That is why he's called Man of Steel. And I really want a sequel called Man of Tomorrow. But I feel like this movie is a masterpiece, and I know not everyone loves the story. I know not everyone loves the ending of them destroying the entire city, and yes, I know not everyone loves what they do with the Superman character of snapping Zod's neck, but it makes sense. Action is visceral, and Zack Snyder's direction here is taking a character that we love, but dissecting this godlike man and making him feel human to us. I love that he's not just this typical Boy Scout. There's a lot more behind Henry Cavill's performance, and I love what he's able to bring to this world. I love this movie, and I also love General Zod, and just the whole entire action climax completely gets me every single time. Man of Steel is a masterpiece. That is my DCEU ranking, and I want to hear your guys' thoughts down below in the comment section, what your ranking would be of the DCEU. Where do you formulate? Do you guys think Joker should be in here? I got that sometimes, but I don't feel like it should. If I did, it would probably be under Aquaman, maybe above it. I don't know. That's one I would have to discuss. Let me know down below if you want me to add that in when I do the Suicide Squad later this year. And of course, guys, just thank you so much for clicking on this. Make sure to head on over to Sandwich on Films on how to see films early. If you want to check out my non-spoiler review of Zack Snyder's Justice League, go check it out up in the card above. And of course, guys, I'll catch you guys soon. So of course, a big thing to you, a big thing to my Patreon supporters, and I'll make sure to stay classy.